So let me show you a couple other things. Okay. So you can see now, let me show you some more navigation. Okay. So let's say you've magnified here and you've gone real far in. If you want to see all your clips in a super quick shortcut, hit your, no, it's not that one, it's that one. Hit your, let's see, that's your backspace, your back, not your backspace, what's it called? Your not your forward slash, but your backslash key. Okay. Your backslash key will give you an immediate view of all your clips, whether you have one clip or you have 10 clips. So if you're like way in magnified, you hit that backslash key and it resizes your timeline so you can see all of your clips. Okay. Your plus key magnifies where your playhead is. So wherever your playhead is and you hit that plus key, it magnifies. The minus key demagnifies. Okay. It also works down here when you use the little slider bar. It magnifies to where you have the playhead, right? So that's navigation. Okay. And these notches are measuring time code. Okay. So you can see right here, right? This is 5 seconds, 15 frames, 5 seconds, 16 frames, 17, 18, 19, 20. So this physical section here is only 5 frames because I'm magnified. If I demagnify, I can't see that detail, right? So that's where magnification helps you to go in and see something close up. It also is helpful when you start editing audio, right? Because you can get closer into the audio and make more fine incremental adjustments. Okay. So is this making sense? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? I figured it out. I have to use the up and down arrow. Right, the up and down, whatever it shows up on your keyboard. So I'm glad you figured something out. I knew there was a way to make it work. Am I going to provide shortcuts for Mac? Yeah, I have that actually on a PowerPoint that we're going to look at in a few minutes. Okay, that kind of reviews some of the stuff we talked about. All right, so let me go back. So we've got our basic navigation, right? Our clips live in our project panel. We bring them in there, we import them. And when we import, what we're doing is we're not really moving media. We're just creating links to those clips that we downloaded, right? That I sent you, you downloaded, put in your folder. And then when we import them, we create links to those clips. Okay, so there's a hierarchy. Let me say that again. There's a hierarchy of importance here with our clips within this project, which in this Premiere project. Okay, these clips in a project panel are known as master clips. Okay, those are the master clips. Those are the top dog. When we open them and come in here and we create edits and then drop them in our timelines, right? These clips in our timeline become known as instances or references, right? So they're reference clips or instances, either way.
Professor, sorry, is this what graded or is just an example?
What's that?
I said, is this what going to be graded or
No, you're not graded on this. This is just an example of what we'll typically do. What we're learning technique. So yeah, this is we're just practicing. That's why we're putting this in the exercise folder.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll start project 1 next week, but I'll lead you through it for project 1. Okay, so this is the for you to get comfortable and learn how to move around in the program and create edits. Okay, project 1 is going to be very simple. There's no effects. It's going to be straight cuts. We're going to put a little music on it. We're going to learn how to like use time code and all of that. Okay. Okay, so now where are we? Oh yeah, so these are master clips and these are references. Why should I care? Well, here's why. Because if you accidentally come up here and attempt to delete one of these clips in your project panel, if you have part of that edited in your timeline, it will also delete what's in your timeline. But because Premiere is very smart, it will ask you Are you sure you want to do this? So for example, if I click over here on keys 1 and I hit delete, I get this warning. Okay, so if you want to try this, go ahead. The selection you're deleting contains clip references in one or more sequences. If you continue, these clip references will also be deleted. Do you want to continue? Pop quiz. You see it defaults to no. It's kind of thinking, hey, you probably don't want to do this. You got a little AI working here in your favor. So yeah, you want to say no, because if you say yes, right? You say yes, well, guess what happens? Boom, see, that disappears. Okay, now luckily in this case, I can always Control Z and bring it all back, right? Undo. Now, if I come down here and I try to delete keys 1, it doesn't care, right? It doesn't give you that warning because you're not affecting anything else. Your master is still fine. It's still not affected. It's just now you deleted it from the timeline. So you can do Control Z and put it back. But if you do that by accident and then you move on and do other edits, you're like, oh my God, I got rid of that. You can always go back to keys 1. And if your endpoints are still set, you can still bring it back in. Okay. So that's a hierarchy. That's a master clip, and these are the reference clips. Now we're going to go a little bit under the hood. Okay, when we first saved this project, right? I'm going to show you where it went, and you want to understand this and be comfortable with this, because this is all part of the project management. Because we're going to create a folder for project 1, project 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm going to go into my folder, my exercise folder. Okay, and everybody should be able to see this. It's just like a new thing where this stupid window comes up. Okay, so here I am in my exercise folder, right? Spring 2023 exercise. There's my Jan 23, 2023 full project. Okay, and it's literally identified as a PR Adobe Premiere project. It actually has an extension which is PR.proj. It doesn't show you right here. Okay, now look at the size for a minute. Okay, this is very small. It's only 18 kilobytes. Okay, yet let's look at the media that we brought in, right? Here's the media we brought in, which adds up to about 256 megabytes, almost 257. Okay, yet my project is very small. I want to make sure everybody sees that. That's why, that's the reason that's small, is because your project is actually nothing more than just a bunch of instructions. Okay, it doesn't actually house the media. Okay, so this is getting under the hood, right? Let's go back and look at that. So the OneDrive folder, if I double click and keep going into it, oh, stop annoying me. Actually, this is the one I used here, technically right here, right? And there it is. And if I look at the properties on this, should be about the same, 250 megabytes, right? Okay, so it's about 250 megs. Okay, there it is. This is your data. Okay, so this data is what you import, but you don't really bring in the data. You just simply create a shortcut. It's kind of like on your desktop, you have a shortcut for a certain application. But if you delete that shortcut on your desktop, it doesn't delete the application. Okay, so I want to make sure everybody understands some of that basic theory with project creation and management. Okay, your project file is actually pretty small. Even if you had 100 clips in there, it might only be a couple of meg, even though the clips themselves, the video clips, when you measure the data, could be several gigs. Okay, that data doesn't live in the project. It's different for those of you who work with Photoshop and like Illustrator. A Photoshop document is self-contained. It's in there. There's no attachment to it. You transfer the PSD, you open it, it's all there. If you were to only copy your project and not copy the data, you would open that project and everything would be offline, as they say. Well, I'll show you that on another day. If you move where you store the clips on the computer, will it mess up the sequence project? Here's the short answer to that. You don't want to move your project if it's open. Okay. You want to close it and then move it. And then what's going to happen is if you move the data, then if you move it to a different site, when you open that project, it's going to look for that data where it was before. You're going to have to relink it. So the short answer, you generally want to keep all of that together. Okay. You create a folder, bring in your clips, you create your project, import from that folder. And if you move that, move it all together. Okay. You would have to relink. Yeah. I'll show you that. I don't want to hit you with that tonight. We'll get into that like in the next couple weeks. That's kind of like that level 2 project management. But I want to give you the basic understanding of the difference between a project file, the actual data that you use, and then those clips inside your project. Okay. It's a little geeky, but knowledge is power, right? And it also reduces stress. When things go wrong, you know how to fix it. We'll get more into the fixing part later. Okay. So so think of that project as kind of like really like a suitcase. You know, the project file is like a suitcase. It kind of has it has the creativity that the decisions you're making. So that's the hard work. Okay. If you lose that, then you have to recreate everything, even if your data is still there. But your data is just raw material. Okay. What you do in the sequence in the project, that's your creativity. That's what you've marked in and out. And then as you create effects and do titles, that's your hard work. You don't want to have to recreate that if you can avoid it. Okay. Which goes back to saving. Okay. So hopefully I've started to drill that into your heads. Let me see what else I can get into here before we jump out and talk about some other stuff. Timeline. Also, let's see, you probably don't see much going on over here in the audio because it's very well. You can see a little bit of the audio, right? So you can see as I move through, you can see the meters. Okay. So this meters here, these are master meters. This is sort of a composite of what's happening. It's not really breaking down too many layers. I only have one layer of audio here anyway. Let me see. I think, yeah. Also, you're probably noticing here in the time. Oh, let me show you a couple other things. Let me make these a little skinnier again. Make my tracks a little skinnier by adjusting the height. Okay, so in your timeline, by default, you have 3 layers. When you create a sequence or when you drop a clip in, it gives you 3 video layers and 3 audio layers. But you can add more tracks/layers, okay, by coming over into this area here. This is known as your track header area, HEADER. If you right click, you can add tracks and you can add tracks, okay? So if you add track, that adds 1 track. But if you go add tracks, okay, this will come in to play when we move into projects 2 and 3, and when you're going to start having multiple layers, you're going to do some compositing and that kind of stuff. So you add tracks here, gives you a dialog box. All right. Okay. Again, you see these blue numbers. There's those hot text fields. Okay. If I want to add only 1 audio video track, fine. But I can highlight that and I can add, like, say, 3 more. And do I want to add any more audio tracks? Sure. I'm going to add 2 more audio tracks. Then it says, where do you want those video tracks and audio tracks to go? Well, I want to place them after video 3, which means above video 3. You have a drop down. You can put them below the first track. Usually you're stacking them on top of the last layer, right? Okay, and then here, audio, place them after audio 3. Same options as before. Yes, so you're going to get 4 and 5. Here you're going to get 4, 5, and 6 for video. Okay, hit OK. Boom. All of a sudden, you've added a bunch of more tracks. Okay, so now you have the ability to, do whatever it is that you're going to do, multiple images on screen, animate boxes and titles and backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and same with your audio. You've got multiple tracks where you can mix different, you can have music, narration, sound effects, etc. Now, speaking of all that, backgrounds and foregrounds, there's another hierarchy down here in the timeline, and that is the higher the track number, the more it is in the foreground. So right now, video 1 would be the most background layer, and video 6 up here would be the most foreground layer. Now, we're not adding any other elements right now, but if we had titles, for example, titles would go at the very least on video 2, so they would sit over the background. Okay, so the lower the video track, the more it is in the background, the higher the number, the more it is in the foreground. Okay, the audio, not so much. Audio doesn't really have that hierarchy, it just blends in together. Okay, and you mix it and do all sorts of stuff. Audio's almost like its own art, and some of you may be taking that audio production class. Okay, any questions on some of that? There's going to be more emphasis on this when you look at the tutorials and the reading. Everybody still alive? We're going to be moving a little quicker next week, so I just want to make sure everybody's okay. All right. Okay, so let's do this. Let's see. Right. Okay, well, we went over Blackboard earlier, so you guys know how to take a look at that. Let's do this. Let me see, is there something on Blackboard I want to look at here? Let me see. Yeah, let me just go review real quick what I want you to look at over this coming week. Blackboard, here we go. Okay. 350. Okay. So in the content, so we've got the reading here. Okay. Let me blow this up a little bit. This gets into, basic workflow, getting started, talks about some of this stuff is what we just talked about. So it's good to read and kind of reiterate. Comes in the project panel. This talks about what we just talked about. Some of it will overlap, some will be a little bit new. Here you're looking at the basic layout of the program, slightly different workspace. This is going to give you a quick overview how you can add titles, transitions, and whatnot. Exporting, we're going to talk about that. Exporting is where we send this out of Premiere so that other people can watch it. You could put it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, TV, etc. And then here's workspaces, what we talked about today. Talks about moving them around, importing, customizing workspaces. We did that, save as your workspace. And there it is, how you do the docking and all that stuff. That's what we did earlier. Resizing, you can move them around. It's a very pliable program. What else? Display any panel full screen. There's some shortcuts there. The tools palette, we didn't get into that too much, but these are some different tools that you can use. We'll incorporate some of these as we go forward, but it's good to read about them. Using your source and program monitor, right? And there's like more information about the shortcuts and the different commands and whatnot, and what you're looking at, right? There's the playhead. See here, they call it, they're calling it the playhead here. They used to call it the control current time indicator, which is like really crazy. So here's all this stuff, just mostly review. Here's the safe zones things we talked about earlier with the titles. Preferences, we can talk more about preferences next week. So it's good to read about it, creating projects. Anyway, so it's all highlighted. Just, at the very least, read. Here's some file format stuff. At the very least, read the highlighted stuff. Adding a clip to a sequence, we did that. Target tracks, I can show you that real quick before we jump forward. Trimming clips, we'll talk about trimming. That's another technique where you can make edits on your clips. Here, let me show you targeting real quick. So targeting is this right here, where you have this blue highlight on these different tracks. All right. And so, for example, I'm not sharing. Hang on. Sorry. Let's go back. Okay. So targeting is right here, where you highlight a specific track, or you designate it as a track where you want it to drop. So remember how we did these edits? Like, let's say I'm going to drop another clip down here in the timeline, and I don't want it to go to video 1. and audio 1. Let's say I wanted to go to video 1 and audio 2. I can deselect that. I can highlight V2, V1, A1, A2, and when I drop my insert, it goes to those tracks. So that's called targeting. That can be, again, some of these specific commands and techniques you may use like one time. They may have a very specific situation where they're really handy. Otherwise, you may not use them. But you can also override this. You can still click and drag and drop this down and click and drag and push that back up and, sync it all up to video 1 and audio 1, video 1 and audio 1. So that's targeting. We'll actually get a lot more into that on project 4. But anyway, since that came up. Okay. Okay, good. So let me think. We did that. Oh, let's take a look at some more of those Blackboard items. Okay, and here's again, this is just stuff, download, save it. Here's little highlights of what we just talked about, the project panels. This is just my own little one sheet. Gives you a little example here. These are also good study materials, hint for down the road. Here's some other panels that we will be incorporating as we go forward. The effects panel, where we have a lot of our effects and transitions. The effects control panel, this will become huge as we move into project 2. Audio master meters, we saw that a little bit down there, the tools panel. And then essential graphics is where we're going to be doing some of the titling and that kind of stuff. Forget about the capture, we don't really use that. Export, anyway, history panel. So there's a couple of those panels. So it's good to take a glance at that. And here are the 2 PowerPoints. I call them the big picture presentation. And for some reason that only downloads. So let me just download and open it up. And this is the Mac shortcut. I'm sorry, this is the Mac version. So we're going to talk more about this next week, but this would be good to look at too. This has to do with project settings. We looked at a little bit of this.
It's not showing.
Oh, sorry. I sometimes just kind of roll forward. Here we go. This is called NTSC. We'll talk about this next week. This is the standard for broadcast. Okay. NTSC is what anything, if you create something for television, if you make a television, it has to meet certain standards. And so video has to meet certain standards in order to play properly in a environment where NTSC is the standard, which is an example, the United States. So for example, you go to Best Buy, you buy a monitor. You don't necessarily have to research this because everything they sell there, because you're in the United States, has to be NTSC compliant. Those flat panels, those, $3,000, 8K high res panels, they have to be able to play video footage that's created here in the United States, and all that video is NTSC because that is an NTSC monitor. You go to parts of Europe, Asia, they have a different standard. It's called PAL. Okay, and what happens is you can't play video that is created in the PAL standard on NTSC displays or an NTSC system, and vice versa. Okay, because you're going to get a bunch of snow on the screen, just a bunch of hash. It's not going to work. Okay, so we're going to get more into that, but that has to do with those settings, the project settings, which we glanced at a minute ago. But I want you to read about it. So next week we'll go more into that. These are key attributes of that. There's timecode, and timecode was actually created by a bunch of engineers, which is abbreviated here, Society of Motion Picture Television Engineers. And timecode didn't always exist. And I'm not sharing again. Okay, when I started editing back in the mid '80s, I didn't edit with timecode. That's another story. What do standards and settings do? They are proper project settings, optimize video playback and compatibility of your source files. Okay. Anyway, so let's keep moving forward. There's a little bit more on the interface here, right? More of that we reviewed today. So this is a good way to go back and sort of review what we talked about and actually practiced in our program. Video moves from left to right, right? File relationships, we talked about this a little bit tonight. The project file, that's your suitcase. Media file, that's your actual data. Master clip, right? That's what's in your project panel. And then that's kind of probably not the best language to say reference in project panel, but master clip is the main clip in the project panel. It's like the raw clip, and the reference / instant is what's in the timeline. It's what you select. And then your sequence is all of those clips organized in your timeline. Okay, and they're really, those clips in your timeline are really just pointers, right? They go back to all that stuff. Time code. Here's time code. We're working with that tonight. There you go. Counts minutes, sprocket holes, allows measuring exact precision of accuracy and with the edits. Okay, so take a look at that. And here's basic editing. This is what we were doing today. What we were doing today is rough edits, like a rough cut. We're just kind of stringing shots together, and then we're going to clean them up later. Final editing is where you finalize everything, add effects, titles, you put a countdown, you smooth it all out. And what we're doing is non-structive or non-linear editing. And here you reiterate that idea that we had in the previous screen, that you edit clips, not media files, right? So when you're editing in Premiere, you're not affecting that data. You're only affecting those clips in the timeline, which are just parts of that data or references to that data. So remember that. That's very important. Okay, let's go back in and what more basic editing? Hang on. Edit points, right? So here's what we were doing tonight, marking setting in and out points. Basic 3-point edit. We did that with the in and out on the clip and the playhead serving as the third edit point in the timeline. Go to timecode. That's where we're typing it in the timecode on those hot text fields. IO keys, in and out, shortcut keys. And that's the same for Mac or PC. The insert overlay in the source window, that's what we were using to drop those shots right in there. And the most basic transition is a cut, right? And transition, we didn't get into that tonight, but we will start to toy with that probably next week. Okay, so you can keep that on hold. And then here's a bunch of shortcuts for the Mac folks. A lot of them overlap. And if anybody finds that some of these don't work, let me know. But some of these you're going to use less than others, but there's the so there's the shortcuts there, so you can play around with that. And let me go back and jump into just the PC one. Hang on a second here. Okay, share that. And the PC is not that much different. It's just all the same stuff, right? Just the shortcuts. It's all the same slides, except the very bottom. The shortcuts, of course, are going to be PC related. Okay, so there's, and again, some of the stuff we won't get into, but there's snapping. Oh, not sharing. Hang on. It should just automatically know what I'm doing. Okay, all right, here we are. Wait, we're back on Mac. Hang on. I want to be on PC. Which one's PC? That's Windows. There it is. Oh, here we go. PC shortcuts. Okay. Oh, let me show you these right here. The JKL keys. These are nice. Here's the plus minus, timeline zoom out, N key, etc. So there's all of that. Let me talk about these. This is the last shortcut keys, and then we'll jump and try to take a look at some sample projects. Okay, so the JKLs, these are really nice, good ones to know. What these do is you can use them up here, you can use them down in the timeline, anywhere where you need to play or shuttle through. Okay, and it's literally the 3 keys on your keyboard, JKL. Right, I'm going to put a bunch of more clips in my timeline. You don't have to. I'm just going to sort of string a bunch of stuff through here. In fact, I'm going to click and highlight, copy, and just do like a bunch of pasting just to have a bunch of clips here. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to resize my timeline. So there, it's all repetitive now, right? But instead of scrubbing like this, I can also use my JKL. So basically L will play in real time. If I hit L a second time, it doubles up. If I hit L a third time, it's like 6 times, and I forget how fast you can go. That's the L, and I think I hit it about 3 or 4 times, so it might quadruple, sextuple 6 times as fast, right? So you can hit play fast. K pauses, J goes backwards. Okay, and same thing, if you double up on the J, it reverses very quickly. Okay, So this can be also a nice way to navigate through footage, sometimes when you have a bunch of raw footage. Okay, it's kind of skipping here because, it's just on, because I'm going pretty quick, but that's your JKLs. Okay. And a lot of people, depending on their style, some people are very shortcut oriented, some people use the menus a lot. I'm kind of a combination. I use shortcuts on my left hand and I click with the right. So I do a little bit of both. You will find whatever works for you. I'm not going to force anybody to do it any one way or the other. It's whatever you're comfortable with. So, it's really about your own workflow, but I want to show you some options.